As you guys know, the economy is doing, our economy is outperforming every economy in the OECD, just about every economy. Our inflation rate is down, our employment is at record levels, etc. But Americans don't seem to know it, and we have all the progressive intelligentsia telling folks, why is it that Americans aren't feeling it? And they talk about perception and they're not feeling it. Well, when you ask a particular question, how is your personal economy? Everybody talks about their personal economy doing fairly well, but the state economy sucks. The national economy sucks, but I'm doing fine. This is calculated indoctrination from great pieces written by the right. One of the reasons that we write all the blogs that we write, one of the reasons we do all the things we do to increase knowledge is exactly because of that, right? So we have Steve Rattner, who kind of put some sense into the nonsense. And we have a lot of work to do. We have to improve a lot. We have to make the corporations pay more. We have to let them pay more to people. We have to force them to pay their fair share in taxes. We have to force them to stop inflation. Otherwise, we will tax their inflation-driven profits right out of them and redistribute it back to the people they stole it from. That is what we must do. So anyway, let's go ahead and listen to Steve Rattner here, and then we will take it on the other side.
And let Steve Rattner help us separate perception from the facts of this economy. Steve, good morning. So we can start with that idea of the United States being in a recession right now, which it plainly is not. We can talk about why so many Americans believe that, but let's talk first in your chart about where we really are.
Yeah, Willie, it's really quite an extraordinary poll. We've seen polls before that show Americans having a more negative view on the economy. I've never seen one quite like this. These are the numbers you mentioned in your lead-in, that roughly more than half of Americans think we're in a recession. It is divided somewhat by party. More Republicans, 67% feel it, than Democrats, but even Democrats, 49% feel it. We've seen this kind of divergence before, and interestingly enough, it flips around with every election, not surprisingly. But here's the reality. The reality is the economy has basically been growing since COVID, except for a very small downturn here. Under Joe Biden, it's grown by 2.8% a year, which is actually slightly faster than it was growing under Trump, even before COVID hit. And so you can see every quarter we've had reasonably strong economic growth. So why people feel this is really quite a mystery.
So, Steve, what about, this other sort of low unemployment, a surging stock market, and yet ... How do you explain what's going on with the economy?
Yeah, you get the same kind of news results when you look at those kinds of things. 50% of Americans think unemployment is at a 50-year high. 50% think it's at a 50-year high. Unemployment is actually at a 50-year low. It's really amazing. Unemployment is below 4%. It's been below 4% for months and months now. And it is, it's just extraordinary that people think we're at a 50-year high. You can see some of the highs over here. Mm-hmm. Another issue is stocks. Half of Americans think stocks are down this year. Stocks are actually up 11% this year. They're up 45% since Joe Biden took office. Complete disconnect in people's minds between perception and reality of the stock market.
Well, there are some people who are legitimately feeling the pinch still. And yet, though, overall, Americans have a very negative perception of Biden's economy. And is that fair? What do you see?
What's interesting, and we've looked at some of these numbers before, is that if you ask people how their own finances are, about 75% think they're okay. And that really goes all the way back to 2018, pretty consistently. What's happened in the last number of years, and not just under Biden, but it really started back in about 2019 or thereabouts, the perception of how local economies are doing has deteriorated, and the perception of how the national economy is doing has deteriorated. So people have created this dichotomy in their minds between the national economy, their local economy, and themselves. What's also interesting, most recently, and these are from some other polls that have come out lately. What's also interesting is the way divergence between sentiment and approval has occurred. People's sentiment about the economy has actually been trending up. We had one bad number the other day, but we'll have to see if it's an aberration, if it jumps around a little bit. But the general trend has been improving sentiment. On the other hand, Biden's approval ratings have been trending down. Now, there are obviously a lot of other things going on, particularly the war in Gaza and so on and so forth. But there seems to be now a spread between how people feel about the economy to some degree and how they feel about Biden.
And that is what's important for us to know the facts, the numbers, etc. Now, you're going to have those who simply, for ideological reasons, simply because they don't have an affinity for numbers or they don't have the proclivity to follow numbers, etc., that they are happy to convince themselves of the lie because it fits into how they think about something. I can't help that. I honestly can't help those who want to remain uninformed, those who want to remain ignorant. That's your call. Now, it is okay to say you don't like a particular president just because he doesn't have your ideology. But it is intellectually dishonest. It is ignorant to go ahead and simply ignore a reality, because then that puts your own character in question. That puts your own intellect in question. So remember that. Those are simply the numbers, and the numbers are there for all to see. It's not hidden from anybody.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.